At least this one might actually make something of herself. That is what my father said, standing over my hospital bed, 6 hours after I gave birth to my daughter. My husband clenched his fists. My mother-in-law grabbed his arm. My own mother stared out the window like she'd gone deaf. And me? I just held my baby girl against my chest and smiled. Because for 31 years, I'd been the invisible Warren, the one who sat at the end of the table, the one whose name came up only when someone needed something done quietly. But for the last 4 years, I'd been keeping a secret. And if it ever came out, it would flip everything my father believed about this family upside down. I didn't plan what happened at that brunch. I just finally stopped pretending it didn't hurt. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. And if you're watching right now, drop your city and your local time in the comments. I'd love to know who's out there. Now let me take you back 4 years. To the night I found out my parents were about to lose their house. 4 years ago, I was 27. I just finished my advanced nursing certification, 6 months of night classes after 12-hour ER shifts, studying in my car during lunch breaks because the break room was always full. I called my father the day I passed. He picked up on the 4th ring. I told him. There was a pause, 3 seconds, maybe 4. And then he said, "That's nice. Hey, did Greg tell you he got promoted? Regional sales manager. They gave him the corner office." That was it. My entire accomplishment, swallowed whole by my brother's job title in under 10 seconds. I wish I could say that was unusual. It wasn't. Growing up, there was a pattern in the Warren house. I'd bring home honor roll. Dad would mention Greg's baseball trophy. I'd get accepted to nursing school on a partial scholarship. Dad would spend dinner talking about Greg's new apartment. Every single time, like clockwork. My name was a bridge sentence to get back to my brother. Thanksgiving that year made it crystal clear. We were all at my parents' place, the same split-level ranch in Dayton they'd had since 1989. Turkey, stuffing, the works. Dad stood up, raised his glass, and gave a toast. "To Greg," he said. "The pride of this family." Everyone clinked. I sat at the far end of the table, next to the bowl of mashed potatoes nobody touched. My mother reached under the table and patted my knee. "He doesn't mean it, sweetie," she whispered. But she didn't say a word to him. She never did. I told myself I was fine. I told myself it didn't matter. Then Ryan showed me something on his laptop that changed everything. Ryan, my husband, is a structural engineer. Steady hands, steady head. He'd been helping my parents fix things around their house for years. Leaky faucet, sagging porch steps, a cracked foundation wall in the basement. Dad never thanked him, but Ryan went anyway, because that's who he is. One Saturday, Ryan drove over to replace a corroded pipe under their kitchen sink. Mom was at the grocery store. Dad was napping in his recliner. And sitting right there on the kitchen counter, half hidden under a coupon flyer, was an envelope from the mortgage company. Ryan wasn't snooping, it was open. The red print was hard to miss. 3 months past due, 62 days to resolve or face foreclosure proceedings. He took a photo with his phone. That night, he showed me. I couldn't breathe. My father had retired early at 59. His back gave out after 31 years at the plant. He told everyone he was set, comfortable, that his pension and savings had it covered. "We don't need a thing," he'd say whenever anyone asked. "Warrens take care of themselves." It was a lie. His pension covered maybe 60% of their expenses. The rest had been bleeding out of savings for 2 years. I called Greg, figured maybe we could split something. His voice got tight immediately. "Yeah, I've been meaning to help, but things are tight right now. The divorce, you know." I knew. Greg's ex-wife got the condo. Greg got the debt. The golden child was drowning, too. He just had a nicer suit on while he sank. I lay awake that whole night, staring at the ceiling fan going in slow circles. I hated how my father treated me, but I couldn't watch my mother lose her home, so I called the one person I trusted with money. And she happened to be my mother-in-law. Linda Callahan is Ryan's mother. 58, widowed, retired from a 30-year career as a CPA. She's the kind of woman who wears reading glasses on a chain and can calculate a tip to the penny without looking at her phone. She raised Ryan alone after his father passed from a heart attack when Ryan was 14. She doesn't waste words, she doesn't waste money, and she doesn't tolerate cruelty. I sat at her kitchen table and told her everything. The overdue notice, the pension gap, Greg's silence, Dad's pride. Linda took off her glasses, set them on the table, looked at me for a long moment. "If you're going to do this," she said, "do it right. Don't let them know." She introduced me to Margaret Bowen, a financial advisor she'd worked with for years. Quiet, precise, trustworthy. Within 2 weeks, Margaret set up a modest trust, nothing fancy, that would route a monthly transfer of $2,800 from my savings into my parents' checking account. On their end, it would show up as a supplemental benefit. Clean, untraceable without digging. Ryan held my hand the night I signed the first authorization. "You sure?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I'd rather live with this than live with guilt." The first transfer hit in March. That same week Dad called Greg. I heard about it later from Mom. "Looks like the pension office finally fixed my benefits," Dad had said, proud as ever. Greg's response: "See? I told you it'd work out." Nobody thanked me. Nobody even knew. And that became the shape of the next 4 years. $2,800 a month. 48 months. Keeping the lights on in a house where my name was never the one they toasted. 2 years in, the transfers kept going, quiet, automatic, invisible. $67,000 and change. Nobody knew. Nobody asked. I didn't keep a running tally back then. I tried not to think about it. Every month, a notification would pop up on my banking app, and I'd swipe it away like a bill I'd already accepted. Meanwhile, the Warren family kept running on the same script. Christmas, 2 years into the transfers. We gathered at my parents' house. Same dining room, same mismatched chairs, same position for me at the end of the table. Greg sat at Dad's right. His new girlfriend, a paralegal named Tina, sat at his left, looking thrilled to be included. After the ham, Dad tapped his glass. He had an announcement. "I've been thinking about the future," he said. "When I get older, really older, someone's going to need to handle the family finances, make the big calls, so I'm putting Greg in charge." He said it like he was passing down a crown. Greg nodded solemnly, as though he hadn't maxed out 3 credit cards buying a boat he never used. Then Dad looked at me, not with cruelty exactly, something worse. Pity. "You just focus on your little job, Myra. Leave the big decisions to the men. That's how this family works." A few people chuckled, the nervous kind, the kind that fills silence when nobody knows what to say. Mom studied her napkin. Tina glanced at Greg like she was waiting for him to object. He didn't. Under the table, I was squeezing my water glass so hard my knuckles went white. Ryan placed his hand on my thigh and pressed gently. A quiet signal. I'm here. I thought the worst was over. Then I got pregnant, and everything escalated. 5 months along. I announced it in the family group chat with a photo of the ultrasound. Black and white blur, tiny fingers curled like a comma. Mom was ecstatic. Heart emojis, prayer hands, a voice memo of her crying happy tears. Greg texted, "Congrats, sis," and then immediately pivoted. He was seeing someone new, wanted to borrow the family cabin for Valentine's weekend. Could Mom check if the hot tub still worked? Dad's reply came 40 minutes later. 6 words and an emoji. Hope she's got Ryan's brains. I stared at that message for a long time. Read it once, twice, 3 times. Showed it to Ryan. He didn't say anything. Just set the phone face down on the counter and walked into the other room. That night, at my 20-week checkup, I sat alone in the dark ultrasound room while the tech went to get the doctor. The screen still glowed, my daughter's profile, her nose, the curve of her skull. I put my hand on my belly and whispered something I'd been thinking for weeks. "I promise you'll never sit at the end of the table." When Ryan picked me up, he was quiet for most of the drive. Then, at a red light 3 blocks from home, he said it. "Maybe it's time to stop the transfers." "Not yet. Mom needs it." "Your mom," he said, eyes on the road. "Not him." He was right. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. 3 months later, I was in a delivery room, drenched in sweat, holding my daughter for the first time. And the first thing my father said when he walked in was not congratulations. The hospital room was warm. Too warm. The kind of warmth that makes everything feel thick. The air, the sounds, the way time moves. Lily had been on my chest for 2 hours, skin to skin. Her eyes were closed. She weighed 6 pounds, 11 ounces. I'd counted every finger twice. Ryan sat beside me, his hand on the edge of the bed. Linda, my mother-in-law, was in the armchair by the window, knitting something pink. Mom had arrived an hour earlier, teary, quiet, holding my hand without saying much. That was enough. Dad showed up 4 hours late. Traffic, he said. He didn't hug me, didn't congratulate Ryan, didn't even glance at my mother, who'd been waiting for him since noon. He walked straight to the bed, looked down at Lily, tilted his head the way you'd inspect a used car. At least this one might actually make something of herself. The room went silent, not the comfortable kind, the kind where the oxygen leaves. Ryan stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. Linda was already on her feet, one hand on Ryan's shoulder, firm, steady. Not now. Mom turned to the window. I watched her reflection in the glass, jaw tight, eyes shut. I looked up at my father. He was smiling, that half-smile he wore when he thought he was being clever. I didn't cry, I didn't shout. I just held Lily a little tighter and said, "She already has, Dad. She's here." He waved his hand, a flick, really, like brushing away a gnat, and turned to Mom. "When's Greg coming? I want him to see his niece." He stayed 20 minutes. He never held her. The door barely clicked shut before Ryan was in the hallway. I heard it from the bed, one sharp thud, fist against drywall. Then Linda's voice, low and even. "Not here. Not now." A minute later, he came back. Knuckles red, eyes wet. He knelt beside the bed and pressed his forehead against my arm. "I'm done watching him do this to you." I put my hand on the back of his head. Lily was still asleep against my chest, breathing in that tiny rhythm newborns have, fast, shallow, relentless. Linda sat back down. She took her time, folded the knitting into her lap. Then she looked at me, not with sympathy, not with pity, but with the kind of clarity that only comes from a woman who's done her own math. "Sweetheart," she said, "you've transferred over $100,000 to that man, and he walked into your recovery room 6 hours after you gave birth to his granddaughter, and that's what he said." I looked at the ceiling, blinked hard. "I know." Silence. "I know." Lily stirred. I shifted her to nurse. The room went quiet again, just monitors beeping, the hum of fluorescent lights, the sound of my daughter learning to eat. Then I spoke. Not loud, not angry, just level. "He's planning a brunch for the baby, a big one. Family, neighbors, everyone." Ryan shook his head. "You don't have to go." "Oh, I'm going." He looked at me. Linda looked at me. I looked at my daughter. "Because if he's going to use my baby to perform his perfect family show, he should at least know who's been funding the stage." 2 weeks after Lily was born, I made a phone call I'd been turning over in my head since the hospital. Margaret Bowen picked up on the second ring, professional as always. She didn't do small talk, which is one of the reasons I trusted her. "I need a summary," I said. "Every transfer, every month, every dollar. His account number, the trust routing, all of it." There was a pause on her end. Not hesitation, calculation. "You're sure? Once this is out, there's no taking it back." "I'm not trying to take anything back, Margaret. I'm just done hiding." The email arrived the next morning. I opened it at the kitchen table while Lily slept in the bassinet beside me. Ryan was at work. The house was quiet. 48 line items, 48 months, $2,800 each. Total, $134,400. Every entry time-stamped, routed, verified, clean documentation, the kind of paper trail that doesn't leave room for arguments. I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips. Then I closed the phone, set it face down on the table, walked to the bassinet and watched my daughter sleep. Not yet. That's what I told myself. Not yet. I saved the file. Didn't tell anyone except Ryan, who nodded once, and Linda, who said, "Good." I still didn't plan to use it at the brunch. I want you to understand that. I was genuinely hoping, the way you hope against every shred of evidence, that my father would walk into that party and just be a normal grandfather for one afternoon. But then he called about the seating arrangements. Dad called on a Tuesday evening. I was nursing Lily in the rocking chair, one hand holding the phone on speaker. "Brunch is set for Sunday," he said. 30 guests. I reserved extra folding chairs from the church. I'll handle the speech. You just bring the baby and smile. "Can I say a few words too?" I asked. A beat of silence, then that tone, the one that sounds patient but means the opposite. "About what, Myra?" "Let me handle it. I know what people want to hear." I heard Mom's voice in the background, muffled, asking something about napkins. Then Dad's voice dropped, the way it does when he thinks he's being quiet but isn't, and I heard it clearly. "Make sure Greg sits next to me at the head table. Myra can sit with the cousins." He didn't know I was still on the line, or maybe he didn't care. My daughter's brunch, my daughter's welcome party, and I was being assigned to the overflow table like a distant relative who showed up uninvited. I ended the call, set the phone on the armrest, looked down at Lily. She'd fallen asleep mid-feed, lips still parted, milk-drunk and peaceful. I sat there for a long time. The house was still. The ceiling fan clicked on every third rotation. Ryan kept meaning to fix it. Then I picked up my phone and texted Ryan 3 lines. "We're going to that brunch. I'm bringing my phone. And ask your mom to print the backup." He replied in under a minute. Just one word. "Done." I put the phone down and rocked my daughter in the dark. Sunday was 5 days away. Sunday morning. Bright, clear, 72 degrees. The kind of Ohio weather that makes everyone believe in fresh starts. My parents' backyard looked like a magazine spread, or at least Dad's version of one. White tablecloths, pink balloons tied to every chair, a hand-painted banner strung between the oak tree and the fence post. "Welcome, baby Lily." Dad had outdone himself. Not for Lily, of course, for the audience. 30 guests, aunts, uncles, cousins. 3 neighbors, including Mrs. Dobson from across the street, who'd brought a casserole and her reading glasses. 2 of Dad's old buddies from the plant, Greg and his new girlfriend, whose name I'd already forgotten. Everyone dressed in Sunday casual, holding lemonade, complimenting the yard. Ryan carried Lily in her car seat. I walked beside him, Linda 1 step behind. We came through the side gate, and I saw it immediately. The seating. 2 long tables. The main one, front and center, closest to the house, had place cards. Dad at the head, Greg to his right, Mom to his left, Greg's girlfriend next to Greg. Open seat for one of Dad's buddies. The second table, smaller, pushed toward the back fence near the recycling bins, had no place cards, just plastic cups and paper plates. That's where I was supposed to sit. At my own daughter's welcome party. By the recycling. Aunt Helen, Dad's younger sister, 61, no filter, God bless her, spotted me before I'd even set down the diaper bag. "Honey," she said, hugging me sideways, "why are you all the way back here? This is your baby's party." I looked at the head table. Dad was arranging his speech notes beside his plate. "Ask Dad," I said. Helen's eyes narrowed. She didn't ask. She didn't need to. They served quiche and fruit salad. Dad waited until every plate was full. Then he stood, tapped his glass with a butter knife, and smiled the smile he saves for audiences. Speech time. 30 faces turned. Forks went down. Even Lily stopped fussing in Ryan's arms. 30 years, Dad began. "I've been waiting for this family to give me a granddaughter." He pointed at Greg. "Your turn next, son." Laughter. Easy, comfortable, rehearsed. Then he talked about the Warrens, the legacy, the values. His voice swelled the way it always does when he's performing. The retired foreman giving one last shift speech. "My son, Greg," he said, lifting his glass. "The backbone of this family, the one I know I can count on." Greg raised his glass back. Tina squeezed his arm. Mom beamed. Then Dad's eyes found me. Back table, plastic cup in hand. "And Myra, well..." He paused, chuckled. "We all know she's the quiet one. I just hope little Lily here got her drive from Ryan's side of the family." A ripple of laughter, mostly nervous. Helen didn't laugh. Mrs. Dobson set down her fork. But Dad wasn't done. He walked toward Ryan, who was holding Lily near the dessert table. Dad leaned in, studying her face like he was reading a resume. "But look at her. Strong chin, bright eyes. This one's got potential." He straightened up, grinning. More than her mama at that age, I can tell you that. He laughed. Alone. The yard went quiet. Not the respectful kind. The kind where people suddenly become very interested in their fruit salad. I sat at my table, both hands flat, fingers still. No trembling. No tears. I looked straight at my father. And I waited. Greg stood up next. Of course he did. He lifted his glass, the real glass, from the main table, and cleared his throat. To Dad, he said. The man who keeps this family together. Everyone drank. I watched the lemonade tremble in my plastic cup. Then Greg turned to me, grinning that easy, golden boy grin. He crossed the yard to my table and clapped me on the shoulder like I was a teammate who'd fumbled, but he wasn't going to make a thing of it. Hey, sis. Don't worry. Lily's got the Warren genes. She'll be fine. He squeezed my shoulder and walked away, back to the main table, back to his seat at the right hand of the father. Aunt Helen appeared beside me. She crouched down, voice low. Are you okay, sweetheart? I'm perfect, Aunt Helen. She looked at me. I could tell she didn't believe me. I could also tell she was angry. Not at me. Ryan leaned close to my ear, Lily cradled in his other arm. Say the word and we leave. Right now. I looked at my daughter. She was awake, staring at the pink balloons with that wide, unfocused wonder newborns have. She didn't know what her grandfather had just said about her mother. She didn't know any of it. She was just watching balloons. I looked at Linda. She sat 2 chairs down, her handbag on her lap, calm, upright, watching me the way a pilot watches instruments. She gave me a nod, small, certain, one nod. That was all I needed. I took a breath, stood up, pushed my chair in, neatly, quietly, the way I do everything. Then I walked to the main table. Dad, can I say a few words? He looked surprised. Now? We're about to cut cake. It won't take long. He waved his hand like he always does. Make it quick. So I did. I stood at the head of the main table. No microphone, no notes. Just me, my voice, and 30 people who suddenly didn't know where to look. Thank you all for being here for Lily, I said. My voice was steady. I made sure of that. She's 3 weeks old, and she's already surrounded by more love than I ever expected. I let that land. A few smiles. Mrs. Dobson pressed her hand to her chest. Dad just said something about hoping Lily got her drive from Ryan's side. I turned to my father. He was still smiling. The frozen kind. The kind that means he's calculating. That's fine. He's been saying versions of that my whole life. The smile cracked. Just a fraction. But there's something everyone here should know. Something I've kept quiet for 4 years. Dad shifted in his chair, his arms crossed. Myra, this isn't the time for drama. You're right, Dad. It's the time for honesty. Mom reached for his arm. Myra, please. I looked at her. Really looked. Mom, I love you, but I need you to listen this time. Just this once. She let go of Dad's sleeve. Her hands dropped to her lap. I saw her chin tremble, but she didn't speak. 30 people. No one moved. A balloon popped somewhere, one of the pink ones tied to the fence, and a cousin's kid yelped. But nobody turned. Every pair of eyes was on me. I felt it then, that weightless electric clarity you get when you've been holding something for so long that finally letting go feels less like a choice and more like gravity. 4 years, $134,000. I saw. And a truth that was about to change everything. 4 years ago, I said. I found out this house was 3 months from foreclosure. The word landed like a stone in still water. I watched it ripple across the yard. Aunt Helen's mouth opening, Mrs. Dobson gripping her armrest, Greg's girlfriend looking at Greg like she was seeing him for the first time. Dad's pension wasn't covering it. Savings were gone. The mortgage company had already sent the final notice. Dad's jaw tightened. That's private family. I'm not finished. He stopped. I don't think anyone had ever said that to him before. Greg couldn't help. I glanced at my brother. No offense, Greg. Greg stared at his plate, his ears turned red. Tina pulled her hand off his arm. So, I set up an anonymous monthly transfer. $2,800 every single month, for 48 months. Whispers. Helen covered her mouth. One of Dad's plant buddies set his glass down slowly, deliberately, like he needed something to do with his hands. I turned back to my father. Dad, you told everyone your pension got adjusted, that the benefits office fixed your account. I held his gaze. It wasn't them. I let the silence do the work. It was me, the quiet one, the one who'd never make something of herself. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's ridiculous. I never... Check your bank account, Dad. I didn't shout, didn't lean forward, said it the same way I'd say, pass the salt. I turned to Linda. She reached into her handbag, pulled out a printed sheet, 48 lines dated, stamped, and set it on the table in front of him. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. His face went white. A notification from Margaret Bowen. Per Ms. Warren's request, the supplemental trust transfer has been permanently discontinued effective today. Donald Warren stood at the head of his own table, phone in one hand, printed bank statement in the other, and for the first time in my life, he had nothing to say. His face didn't crumble all at once. It happened in stages, confusion, then recognition, then something I'd never seen on my father. Shame. Greg broke first. He pushed back from the table, chair scraping the patio. Wait, what? You've been... How? He looked at me, then at Dad, then back at me. 4 years? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The paper answered. Aunt Helen stood up. She's 5'3", and she filled the entire backyard. Donald, is this true? Your daughter's been paying your mortgage this whole time? Dad's voice came out thin. This is none of your business, Helen. You just spent 10 minutes telling everyone she'd never amount to anything. Helen pointed at the statement. I'd say it is my business. Murmurs spread through the tables. Mrs. Dobson shook her head slowly, the way you do when you're disappointed in someone you've known for 30 years. One of Dad's plant buddies picked up his jacket from the back of his chair and quietly put it on, like he was getting ready to leave. Mom started to cry, not dramatically, just tears falling one after another into her untouched quiche. She wasn't crying because she was embarrassed. She was crying because she knew. She'd always known I was the one who showed up. She just never had the courage to say it out loud. Dad looked up from his phone. His eyes found mine. You did this to humiliate me. No, Dad. My voice didn't waver. I did the transfers because I love Mom. I stopped them because I love myself. I didn't leave. Not yet. I stood right where I was, 3 feet from my father, 30 witnesses, a warm breeze pushing the pink balloons sideways. Dad, I'm not doing this to punish you. He was still holding the printout. His thumb had smudged the ink on line 37. I'm doing this because Lily is 3 weeks old, and I refuse to let her grow up watching her mother be treated like she doesn't matter. Helen sat back down. She folded her arms and nodded, one firm dip of the chin, like a judge who'd heard enough. If you want a relationship with your granddaughter, I said, it starts with respecting her mother. Not because I pay your bills, not because I proved something today, because I'm your daughter. That should have been enough. Dad's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Nothing came out. I'd seen him speechless maybe twice in my entire life. Both times someone else had been in control of the conversation. This time, it was me. I'm not asking for an apology today, I said. I'm telling you the rules have changed. I turned to Mom. She was wiping her eyes with a paper napkin, mascara smudged, hands trembling. Mom, I love you. The door is always open. I paused. But I'm done sitting at the kids' table in my own life. She nodded. Not the dismissive kind she gave at Thanksgiving. A real nod, the kind that costs something. Greg sat frozen. Tina had moved her chair 6 inches away from his without anyone noticing. I looked at the yard, the banner, the balloons, the folding chairs from the church, a party my father had thrown to showcase himself, in a house my father would have lost without me. Time to go. I walked back to the overflow table, picked up the diaper bag, checked Lily's bottle was capped, folded the blanket Ryan had draped over the car seat. Small, ordinary motions, The kind of things a mother does 100 times a day without thinking. Ryan was already standing, Lily in his arms. He hadn't said a word through the whole thing. He didn't need to. He'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. Linda rose from her chair, gathered her handbag, and walked over to me. She wrapped both arms around my shoulders and pulled me close. Her perfume, lavender, always lavender, mixed with the backyard honeysuckle. "Your father-in-law would have been so proud," she whispered. I bit my lip, nodded into her shoulder. Linda's husband, Tom, had died when Ryan was 14. I never met him, but in that moment, I felt him. We moved toward the side gate. Nobody stopped us. Nobody tried. 30 people parted like water, and we walked straight through. I passed within 2 feet of my father. He was still standing at the head of the table, bank statement in one hand, phone dark in the other, staring at the numbers. I stopped. "Dad?" He looked up. His eyes were red. "I didn't do all of this for a thank you." I held his gaze. "But a thank you would have been nice." I turned and kept walking. Ryan opened the gate. Linda followed. Lily made a small sound. Not a cry, just a murmur. And I adjusted her hat against the sun. The car was parked on the street. Ryan buckled Lily in. I climbed into the passenger seat, closed the door. And then I cried, for the first time. Not because it hurt, because it was over. Ryan started the engine, reached across the console, took my hand, didn't say a word, just drove us home. The calls started before we even got home. Aunt Helen was first. I picked up on the second ring because it was Helen, and Helen doesn't call unless she means it. "Honey," she said, "I just want you to know. I called your father before I left the driveway, told him he owes you an apology, a real one, not the kind where he explains why he was actually right." I laughed. For the first time in weeks, a real laugh. "Thank you, Aunt Helen. Don't thank me. You did the hard part. I just yelled at a man who deserved it." By Monday, 3 more calls had come in. Mrs. Dobson sent a flower arrangement with a handwritten card tucked into the baby's breath. "I raised 3 daughters. I've never been prouder of someone else's child." I put the card on the refrigerator and cried a little more. One of Dad's old plant buddies, Frank, a big man with a quiet voice, called Dad directly. I heard about it later from Mom. "Dawn, is it true? Your girl's been covering your mortgage?" Dad hung up on him. Frank didn't call back. Then, on Wednesday, Greg called me. His voice was different. Smaller, stripped of the easy charm he usually wore like aftershave. "Why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything?" Silence. Long enough to count. "I don't know. Maybe." That was the most honest thing my brother had said to me in 35 years. I could hear something behind it. Not anger, not defensiveness. Recognition. The sound of a man realizing the pedestal he'd been standing on was built by someone else. "Greg," I said, "it's okay." "No," he said. "It's really not." He hung up, but it didn't feel like an ending. Mom told me later what happened after we left the brunch. The guests trickled out within 20 minutes. Quick goodbyes, tight smiles, car doors closing up and down the block. Helen was the last to leave. She hugged Mom at the front door and said, "Call me if you need anything, Patty." She didn't say goodbye to Dad. By evening, it was just the 2 of them. The backyard still had the banner up, "Welcome Baby Lily," flapping in the wind like a punchline nobody laughed at. Dad sat at the kitchen table. The printed statement was still in front of him. 48 lines. He hadn't moved it. Mom sat across from him. She told me she poured 2 cups of coffee and didn't say anything for almost 10 minutes. She just waited. Then, for the first time in 40 years of marriage, my mother pushed back. "She kept us in this house, Donald. 4 years." Dad stared at the paper. "She had no right to tell everyone." Mom's voice went flat, hard. A voice I'd never heard her use. "She had every right. You stood up in front of 30 people and told them your granddaughter might succeed in spite of her mother." She leaned forward. "What did you expect?" Dad looked at the window. The backyard was empty now. The chairs were still out, plates still on the tables, a balloon caught in the gutter. The house he'd almost lost, the yard he'd almost surrendered, kept alive, every month, every check, every dollar. By the daughter he'd seated at the back table. "Call her, Donald." "And say what?" Mom's voice cracked, but it held. "Start with 'I'm sorry.'" He didn't call. Not that night. But he didn't sleep either. A week passed. The dust was still settling, but life doesn't stop for family drama. Diapers still needed changing. Night feeds still came at 2 and 5 a.m. Lily still needed me. And honestly, I needed her. It was a Thursday morning, 6:15. The house was quiet. Ryan had already left for a site visit. I was in the rocking chair, nursing Lily in that half-dark, half-golden light that comes through east-facing windows at dawn. And she smiled. Not gas. Not a reflex. She looked up at me, eyes focusing for the first time on something specific, something real. And the corners of her mouth pulled up. Just slightly. Just enough. I sobbed. The ugly, shaking kind. Not because I was sad, because for the first time in weeks, something beautiful happened that had nothing to do with pain. Ryan came home that evening, and I showed him the photo I'd taken. His eyes went soft. He kissed Lily's forehead, then mine. I posted it in the family group chat. No caption needed, but I wrote one anyway. First smile, my whole world. The reactions came fast. Helen, heart emoji, fire emoji, 5 exclamation points. Mrs. Dobson, she wasn't in the chat, but Helen forwarded it, and she texted me separately. Greg sent a red heart. Mom called immediately, crying, laughing, talking so fast I couldn't understand half of it. Dad didn't react. Didn't call. But Mom told me later. Your father sat on the porch and stared at that photo on his phone for 10 minutes. Didn't say a word. Just looked. I didn't know what to do with that. So I told Ryan what I'd been thinking for days. I don't need him to change. I just need him to stop pretending I don't exist. Then, on a Tuesday night, my doorbell rang at 9 p.m. I opened the door. It was my father. Alone. He was wearing his old brown jacket, the one with the frayed cuffs that Mom keeps threatening to throw out. No flowers, no gift bag, no props. Just Donald Warren standing on my porch under the yellow light, looking 10 years older than he had 3 weeks ago. Ryan appeared behind me, one hand resting on my shoulder. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. "Can I come in?" Dad asked. "That depends on why you're here." He looked down at the welcome mat. His work boots were untied, something I'd never seen before. My father tied his boots before he tied his tie. Always. "I'm here because—" He trailed off, swallowed. "Patty told me I should come. And Helen, and Greg." "That's a lot of people telling you what to do," I said. "What about you, Dad? Why are you here?" He didn't answer right away. A moth bounced against the porch light. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and stopped. When he looked up, his eyes were red. Not crying red, exhaustion red. The kind you get from 3 weeks of not sleeping and not admitting why. "I'm here because I'm ashamed." 3 words. Quiet. No performance. No hand gestures. No audience. I searched his face for the act, for the calculation, for the half-smile he used when he was managing a room. It wasn't there. I stepped back, opened the door wider. Didn't say come in, didn't need to. The open door said it. He stepped inside. Ryan squeezed my shoulder once, then disappeared upstairs with Lily, giving us the room. Dad stood in my hallway, hands in his jacket pockets, looking at the family photos on the wall. Me and Ryan, Lily's hospital photo, Linda at Christmas, none of him. He noticed, I could tell. He didn't mention it. I made coffee, not because he deserved it, but because my hands needed something to do. We sat at my kitchen table, the cheap IKEA one Ryan and I had assembled the week we moved in. No tablecloth, no place cards, no head and foot, just 2 chairs, 2 mugs, and 31 years of things unsaid. Dad wrapped both hands around the mug, stared into it like the answer might be floating there. "I don't know how to say this," he said. "I never learned. Try." He took a breath, let it out slow. I looked at that bank statement every day since the brunch. $134,000. He shook his head. And I couldn't even hold her when she was born. Why not? The question sat between us. I watched him wrestle with it, jaw working, eyes shifting, pride fighting honesty in real time. Because I was scared. I waited. You grew up and became everything I couldn't, Myra. You put yourself through school, built a career, bought a house, married a good man, and you did it all without me. His voice thinned. Without needing a single thing from me, and I couldn't stand it. The refrigerator hummed. Upstairs I could hear Ryan walking Lily in slow circles, her white noise machine a soft static through the ceiling. That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me, I said. He nodded. Slow. I'm not asking you to start the money again. Good, because that's not happening. No anger in my voice, no cruelty, just fact. He took a sip of coffee, set the mug down. His hand was shaking, just slightly, a tremor he'd never have let anyone see at the head of his own table. I know, he said. For a moment, neither of us spoke. And the silence wasn't empty. It was the fullest our kitchen had ever been. I'm not going to pretend this is fixed, I said. One conversation doesn't erase 31 years. I know. Here's what I need. I didn't rehearse this, but it came out clear, like I'd been writing it in my head since I was 12 years old, and overheard him tell Uncle Ray that Greg was the one with the potential. You don't compare Lily to anyone, not to Greg's future kids, not to her cousins, not to me. She's her own person, full stop. He nodded. You don't dismiss me in front of family. Not as a joke, not as a habit. Not ever again. Another nod, slower this time. And if you want to be in Lily's life, you show up. Not for the speech, not for the audience. You show up at bedtime and tummy time and the boring Tuesday afternoons when nothing happens. That's where being a grandfather counts. He looked at the table, traced a scratch in the wood with his fingernail. What about the money? He asked. Quiet, almost ashamed to ask. If Mom needs help, she can call me directly. We'll figure it out. But I'm not sending anonymous checks so you can pretend you don't need your daughter. He flinched. I saw it. A small contraction, like I'd touched something still raw. Then I said the hardest part. And Dad, I need you to say it. Not for me. For you. He looked up. His eyes were wet. Not streaming, just bright, glassy, the way water looks right before it spills. I'm sorry, Myra. His voice broke on my name. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. I nodded, didn't hug him. Not yet. But I nodded. That's a start. I stood up, poured him more coffee, set the mug in front of him, sat back down. It wasn't a happy ending. It was an honest beginning. It's been 2 months since that night at my kitchen table. I won't pretend everything transformed overnight. It didn't. My father is 63 years old and has been running on the same operating system since 1961. Change doesn't come easy. It comes awkward. He started visiting Lily on Sundays. The first time he stood in the doorway of the nursery for a full minute, hands at his sides, like he'd forgotten how to enter a room without commanding it. Then he sat in the rocking chair. I placed Lily in his arms. He held her stiffly at first, elbows locked, jaw tight, and then she grabbed his pinky. His whole body softened. I watched it happen in real time, like ice cracking in spring. He brought her a teddy bear the second visit. Way too big, almost the size of Lily herself. She screamed when she saw it. He looked devastated. Ryan and I laughed for 10 minutes. He doesn't say I love you to me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But last week, when I was carrying Lily to the door to say goodbye, he stopped at the porch steps, turned around, looked at me. She's lucky, he said. She's got your stubbornness. I raised an eyebrow. I'll take that as a compliment. It is one. First time. A small thing. But I heard it. Greg calls me every week now. Nothing big, just, how's Lily? How are you? Simple. Real. We're not best friends. We're something better. We're honest. Mom sent a handwritten card. Not long. Just, I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. Love, Mom. I taped it to the refrigerator, right next to the photo of Lily's first smile. And here's what I learned. Not a lesson. Just something true. You don't have to set fire to the whole house to get warm. Sometimes you just need to stop standing in the cold. If this story reminded you of someone, a parent, a sibling, a version of yourself, I'd love to hear it. Were you the invisible one, or did you finally speak up? Drop your story in the comments. And if this one hit close to home, there are more stories just like it, waiting for you in the description. I'll see you in the next one.